Hello, guys. We are really honored to host today Mr. Parijaat Sunil. He doesn't require an introduction. He has got more than, around about 9 years of experience working inside industry. He has worked into aerospace. He's worked into, SaaS. He also started his career into, in the IT domain. He is an engineer with an MBA from the very prestigious MDI Gurgaon. And Parijat, thank you for joining us and thank you for taking out time on this weekend specifically, because I do understand that being a family man, obviously it's a very difficult thing to take out time on weekends, because this is the time that you get. So thank you for joining us, and Memory Bits is really happy to host you on its weekend show. Thanks a lot, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here, and I hope that this at least helps some people who are online.
Yeah. Okay, so Paijat, many of the people around, who are in their school, in their colleges, maybe in the graduation or post graduation, do see people on LinkedIn, achieving good heights, working across different companies, and do have, this kind of a perception that everything worked out well for them throughout. Right. So we would like to know, how was your childhood, right? It was, we would really want to know about, the difficulties that you faced, and how much were your parents involved in that, and somebody who considered, whom you consider as to be a mentor.
Right. So let me just start off with telling you a little bit about my family background. So I'm basically from Bihar, so from a remote village in Bihar, and but thanks to probably my dad's hard work, I was never based out of there. I was able to get out of my village a little early. By the time I was 2 years old, I was in Chennai. That was the first posting that my dad was, put in. And my dad and mom both married very early on. They were extremely young when they had me. I think my dad was about 21 years old. And imagine having, the youth of today cannot imagine what it is to actually have a family with an with basically a kid who's born when you're 21 years old and your mom is 19 years old, right? So that was where I was what that was what I was born into. My dad had moved to Chennai, and I moved along with him when I was about 2 years old. My sister was just born at that point of time, so two kids in a family in a completely new city. Uh, that I mean, kudos to my dad and to my mom, especially on how they handled such a case, especially when they were in the my dad was in a government job. The pay wasn't that great, and that's what we had to endure. We had to save up money. I was extremely lanky when I was a kid. You would probably see, if you see pictures of me when I was a kid, you wouldn't see this face, right? So that's what we've been through. We've actually been able to fortunately support a lot of my family who wanted to get out of the village as well, because it's all well and good when you say that, yeah, I belong to a certain village and I belong to a certain community, but unless you are exposed, there's a lot of the world that you don't see. There's a lot of lot of breadth of the mind that doesn't come, right? So that's what happened with me in Chennai. I learned the language. I learned how to meet people of different diverse backgrounds. I was among the only North Indians there, so I was extremely ridiculed as a kid. um, and that's how my childhood was. But definitely when I'm talking about the bad moments, there were a lot of good moments too. Especially speaking, I was a decent guy in the class. I used to be always in the first to fifth rank, and that was something which I'm pretty proud of, despite my circumstances. And I had a talent, especially in very different fields. I was so I used to draw, I used to sketch, I used to play a lot of sports. I used to play badminton pretty rigorously. um, and of course, I used to read a lot of novels. I mean, novels were my life's blood at that point of time, because we weren't in a situation where we could afford any video games or any computers or stuff, right? So it was just books, and books that I would buy for 30-40 rupees off the side of the road. And I was a huge bookworm. By the time I had reached my 10th standard, I would have at least completed about 600 books, that I had read from cover to cover, and I had read them multiple times, right? So 600 unique books at that point of time. So that's what helped me with actually becoming what I am today. It helped me understand what how people think, how various people around the world have a different mentality, what can happen, what kind of adversities people go through. Although I've gone through a decent amount of fair hard work myself, I think my parents have done a really great job of not letting it get to me. I was educated in some of the best schools in Chennai. um, and yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, so after that, I reached 11th, 12th. I luckily had the this one to pass out with flying colors. And yeah, after that I was I became a mechanical engineer, after which I worked for Accenture for about 20 months while I published my paper in the final year of college. So that was picked up by the CSIR for a research paper that that I was that I was going through when I was, and funding through my earnings at Accenture, right? So that's what I did. And then to become a more well-rounded person, a person who understands what happens around the world in businesses, especially, I I gave my cat in 2010, I think 2010 November, and by 2011 I was assured a seat at MDI. um, so yeah, life has been good for me so far. Majorly thanks to my mom and dad. The mentor that I would definitely probably wish to mention here is has been my dad, because he's gone through a lot of struggles and he's never had that adversity come to me, I mean, or trickle down to me. It has always been my choice in what I want to do, and how I want to take my life forward. I think that's he's been the one most influential force and the driving force behind my career.
Right, such great points, Parijat. This is such an inspiring journey, right? From such a small place, to becoming such, but to reach such position, right? You have really covered a lot of displacement, and guys, all of you, should understand this thing, right? If you would have heard Parijat properly, you would have found out that he never lost trust on himself. Right? There were a number of problems. He was born and brought up at Chennai, which is a kind of very very opposed to the kind of a culture we North Indians are prone to. But still he managed it, and he came out with flying colors. So there are no excuses in life, right? So once you
That's
start
right.
making excuses, you just keep on making excuses. Parijat is right now.
That's correct. So, I've seen several instances where I've had friends whose family had to move out of Chennai because they were not able to adjust over there, right? So, it was and it actually uprooted the whole family because the kids were not able to adjust. And it's not the kids' fault as such, but yeah, it is definitely something that you have to understand, and that kind of maturity has to set in a little early. That you have to overcome adversity at any time. You have to be that adaptable that even if you're sent to the remotest corner of the earth, you will have to do well. You have to be yourself, and you will have to make sure that everything that you goes or points towards your ultimate goal.
And Paidat, one point I would like to touch upon is that, many,
Sure.
many of the guys, they feel pretty bad if they don't qualify for IIT, right? Because there's a lot of pressure inside India, to get into so-called tier one institute. What
Absolutely.
are your views on that? And since you got into VIT, so you must have appeared for IIT, I think.
Correct.
And how
That's
was,
right.
yes, and and how were you feeling once you were like कि नहीं यार इस बार IIT में नहीं हो रहा है तो I have to go for some lesser institute.
Right. So, see, it's not a matter of a lesser institute. It's actually what you do with the time that you're given at an institute. Anyone who wants to learn can learn and will learn, right? Now, speaking about my IIT preparation, I was, I never did any classes. I wasn't a Fiji guy or a Kota guy or any other institution. I mean, I was studying on my own, and I was doing that at a point of time where, honestly, I had to. There was a lot of schoolwork involved. There was a lot of extracurricular activities that I was into, and all of that, right? So, um, the thing is that you need to understand, you need to prioritize first. You need to understand what your priorities are. You need to ensure that everything that you do, as I just said, right, I mean, everything should be towards that common or one goal in your life. Now, speaking about the IIT exams, I did crack the the qualifiers or the prelims. In the mains, I was just disqualified because of 3 marks in maths. So that was where I did appear in a I think I got like a 6,000 or 7,000 rank, and at that point of time there were very few IITs. So even if you had anything above 3,000, there wasn't a chance that you would get anywhere. So I gave my the entrance for VIT. I think I did really well. Mechanical is one of the most sought after branches in VIT, and I picked that of my own accord because aerospace was something that I wanted to do. So that was something that has been on my mind since I was a young kid. I used to hear fantastical stories about people flying and how the advent of flight actually happened. So I mean, at a point of time, I was part of the NCC cadets, the air wing in Chennai, and that was where I had my first brush with the actual physics that goes into a flight's path on how a plane flies. So that's where it is important to ensure that you don't lose hope. It's not the end of the world if you don't get to your own college. It's basically what you do with what you get is what is important. When you I mean, so don't lose hope. There's always a road ahead. Even with the education that I got at VIT, I was invited to a to a scientific conference in Pretoria, South Africa. This was all paid completely by CSIR, which is the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and this was basically on a project that I did in mechatronics. So it's not basically that only IIT people from the IIT publish papers or get patents. It's people from everywhere. It's just that you have to have that frame of mind and that kind of dedication, that kind of passion, that you have to prove that you are still an outlier even if you're with the crowd. So I think that's what people, or that's what kids today, or people who are struggling today have to understand, that it is very important to stand out and find your way of standing out. Don't get depressed that you're part of the crowd which isn't doing well. It's very important and very it just takes a lot of dedication to get out of that, rut where which you get into when you say that nahi नहीं हो रहा है, या it's या मैं यहाँ पे फंस गया हूँ, या I'm not able to get out of here. It's you can get out of there. You can do amazing things. You can do wonderful things in your life, and it just takes that amount of dedication and hard work.
Like it's very inspiring, Parijat. Whenever I hear to you, you have inspired me also a lot, right? With your stories and with your life events. It's really a
Right.
pleasure to be in touch with your kind of a person. Parijat, so
My pleasure. Yeah.
mechanical engineering. Yeah, thank you.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Mechanical engineering was your love, undoubtedly, right? You wanted to get
Yes.
into aerospace. You love mechatronics and all that thing.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
ultimately, sometimes situations or something like this, you landed up as a software engineer for Accenture, and
Correct.
and you were ultimately coding, right? So
Right.
how was the transition like? Were you able to manage that thing properly?
Yeah, so my stint at Accenture was a means for me to, primarily, and this is something that I told them during the interview as well, that this is going to be a means for me to fund my research, right? So the paper that I was talking about in mechatronics, that was my final year project, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish. I mean, although I was able to submit a theoretical paper, I didn't have, experimental proof on what what needed to be done, and that was primarily because the ingredients that would be required to get the research done would be at least I think 1.2 lakhs at that point of time. So I didn't have the finances personally to get it done, so that's where that's why I said that let's take up a job which at least help me fund what I'm trying to research, and that's where Accenture came in. um, so what I was doing at Accenture was, yes, essentially coding. I would try to, and again at Accenture as well, I used to try to find ways to cut short the work. That was again my first brush with Excel macros, right? So there were several reports that we had to generate, that not only me but my team leader, everyone had to generate, and a lot of that was automated. I was able to automate through macros, and again, macros or Excel, I haven't taken a class or a training or anything like that. It was purely through Google, like starting off with very simple things like how do you add a spreadsheet. So how do you open a spreadsheet, how do you add a new sheet to your worksheet, do you stuff how do you do stuff as simple as entering a formula, right? So I started off with that, and whatever uh, whatever problems or whatever things you see, when you work on something, just you need to understand that there's someone in the world who's ready to help you, who's ready to post the answers, even if that person is anonymous, right? Even if you don't know that person. So I used to put in extremely vague questions into Google, saying that I needed to click on a button and which would send out certain mails to certain people. So then I found out that Excel will have to be integrated with Outlook. For that, there's a separate thing that you need to do. And so that's how I learned how to write macros on Excel. So it was VBA. It was one of the things that I was working on at that point of time. So this was what I did. I early on in my Accenture career, I had automated a lot of my reports. Automated a lot of my team's reports, so that we had a lot more time to focus on the deliverables, right? And because you had more time to focus on your deliverables, you would be able to do much better in your deliverables. You will be able to do whatever normally it would take about 8 hours, where you write a piece of code, and then you'll have to get it reviewed, you'll have to send it to 5 people, you'll have to get it checked. Because I was just an entry level guy. I had just entered into this one. I was not a professional at that point of time. So anything that I wrote, or anything that I did, anything that I verified, or anything, I'm sorry, anything that I edited, had to be checked by someone senior. So it used to take a lot of time to actually run after people, get it verified, because they had their own deliverables and all of that. So that's where the automation thing came into place, where I would be able to just do it with a two button click. I would be able to get it, send it to someone. It'll pop up in their this one, because we used to have a shared workbook. It would pop up in their window, and they would just give an approval, and it would come back to me. So that actually gave me a lot more time to focus on what I was what was important to me at that time, which was the research that I was working on in mechatronics. So I actually was making an artificial muscle. So if you must know, so it was basically a piezoelectric material based artificial muscle that I had created with touch sensing capability. So that it would be the same muscle which would affect movement as well as allow for touch sensing. So that's basically what I was working on. And Accenture as such was a ground for me where I learned how to be professional, how to tackle problems, how to make sure that the time that you spend there is more effective. Because of that, I used to be a guy who used to work in office for 6 hours at max. I mean, was the longest day that I can remember was about 12 hours. But again, though that was a little early on, later days I would average about 4 to 5 hours, and they were happy because I used to get my deliverables done, I used to get my work done, and that's about it, right? So that's when I was actually, I was actually working on my body as well. I used to gym out quite a bit at that point of time. So there were a lot of things that I was doing. When I think back, I mean, honestly speaking, I was a guy who used to take out time for everything, I think. So and again, that is important because you need to time for yourself as well. If you keep working for 14, 15, 16 hours every day, you're going to burn out pretty quick, right? So there's time for everything, and there's always an easier way of doing things. There's always some shortcut or some way that you can find where you can shorten the current path or the current way of doing things much quickly, much faster. So that's basically what my stint was at Accenture.
Great. So, quite an elaborate thing, right? And guys, you should learn from how Parijat actually managed his time, and how he kept up this thing, like what was his motivation, and how he made sure that he worked very effectively, plus the kind of an initiative he took for automating this entire process. He was always an out of the box thinker, right? He was always thinking about the process. And this is a very ideal, this is, won't say an ideal, but this is the right way to go about any job, I would say, Parijat.
That's right.
Would say, like, you were not into your right field, but still, you managed your things in a way which actually, helped you achieve that destination where you wanted to go.
That's right, and obviously thanks to the mentors and the trainers that I had at Accenture, because the first 3 months were extremely rigorous. I was getting into something that I didn't understand, right? So kudos to them as well. I mean, I'm still in touch with a few people from there today, and we still talk about the times where I entered the greenfield training. So they actually were the people who got me interested in coding, got me interested in actually anything that is to do with the coding environment. So I was always interested in computers, but again, that was mostly on the hardware side. um, Again, yes, so this is something that I would like to tell everyone, that there are always going to be there's always going to be a way of doing things, a status quo, right? And the company that is hiring you isn't hiring you for maintaining that status quo. It is hiring you for changing that, for effectively improving the status quo, or improving the how fast things can be done or how efficiently things can be done. A company is not paying you, I mean, if the company is paying you to just drone on and get some work done, that can be done through any person who's passed through that 12th standard. So your the thing about college is that you start understanding that there are ways around things that that are normal processes, and there are ways that you can do stuff much better. So that's what your company is paying you for. And if you are looking to make a mark in the company that you're working for, the organization that you're working for, please ensure that go through the processes, the standard processes first, because you will definitely find something that can be improved. And that's how you need to get you would probably get recognized. That's how your peers will know that you're there, not just for yourself and not for your 8-hour piece of work, but for them as well, because you've made their life a lot easier. So that's something that you need to understand, that companies don't essentially pay you to yeah, do whatever everyone else is doing. Because if that was the case, then they would hire people at much lesser salaries. And honestly, a lot of jobs can be automated as well. So you can simply whatever work they give you, that is possible by someone who's a little more experienced, to be able to done it to be able to do that in 2 hours. So I mean, that's the thing. So just learn, see the processes, work out where you can pitch in, work out where you think the processes can be improved, and improve them. I mean, you will definitely need to take a lot of in a lot of cases you'll have to go through a lot of red tape, but it's worth it here. It's you'll have to go through a lot of approvals and all of that, but it actually works out in the end.
Yeah. And now the $1 million question. When did it come to your mind to start preparing for an MBA?
Right. So this was something that that actually happened as a challenge for me. I was working in a team at Accenture, where the team leader changed. And honestly, not to say anything negative about him, but he wasn't as effective as the person who was there before him. Right. I had a very good relationship with the earlier TL and with the rest of my team, but the person who came after him was more of a guy who was he was like, you have to spend 8 hours at work. If you don't spend 14 hours at work, then you're useless. Then and you're not working hard, right? So he would for me, as a guy who is used to, like, just you working for 4 to 5 hours a day, maximum 6 hours a day, I mean, it was weird for him to see that, right? And my team was used to that, so there was no problem from their side. In a lot of cases, they told him as well that, whatever work you give him, he will ensure that it gets done, so there's no issue there. um, but he was a guy who was, like, nahi, this is not the way it needs to be done. There's a process, there's a billing, this and all of that, right? So he raised that to our then on-site team as well, which was based in UK at that point of time. And they said that as long as he finishes his work, we don't have a problem with you billing 9 hours for him. So at every point, it was a kind of this one for him, that how is this guy working here? I mean, he's not supposed to be, he's supposed to be chucked out, because or he's supposed to be at least rated lower, because he's working 4 hours while everyone else is working 14-15 hours every day. So the thing was that, he in a separate meeting. So this was my second review at Accenture, and he told me that I'm giving you a very low rating because you're not going to amount to anything. So whatever improvements that you've been able to build to the team, that is something that I could have done. I could have got it done through another person, or that's not your it shouldn't have been your prerogative to get it done. It was someone at the manager's level who should be doing it, not yours. So stick to your KRAs and stick to what work you've been assigned to. And he told me that, I mean, you're not going to amount to anything. This is not you shouldn't talk about what managers are doing or what team leads are doing, because you're just a software engineer. You've just joined a year back. So I took that up as a challenge. I was like, yeah, how is it that this person is telling me that that I cannot be in the at the level of a manager or understand what a manager is doing, right? I mean, that's not something, that's a mindset. That is not something that your role or your current position in an organization should um, uh, you know should should basically should be the thing that controls you, or the thing that limits you. So that's when I took it as a challenge. And honestly speaking, I think there was only about 2 months left for cat. I gave my cat in November, and I think this had happened in about August or September. I'm guessing that kind of that review or that rating. And I was like, nahi yaar, isko dikhana hai. I mean, the thing he said really pricked me. He said that you're going to amount to nothing. So that actually pricked me a lot. And that's when I said, okay, theek hai, 2 mahina hai. I know a lot of people take a lot longer, but uh, you know again, the kind of novels that I've read, the kind of this one that I used to do, keeping up with the current times, the news and all of that at that point of time. I think that helped me because I was already doing that. It was not something new to me. I was an engineer, so quants and reasoning came naturally to me. So for the 2 months, I just gave mock tests during weekends. Honestly, that's what I did. So just mock tests on the weekend, and analyze each and every result. So every result, every negative mark that you get, analyze it, understand where you got wrong, where you went wrong. Do you think you could have scored a little higher because you could have moved to another question and not got stuck reading or doing that extremely long question, right? So that's where that 2 months basically taught me how to approach competitive exams, because it's very important not to get stuck. It's very important not to get caught up in a moment where you think that this is something that is hard for me, so I'll keep doing this. No, it's first sort out everything that is easy, then work on stuff that is hard for you. um, Also, time management and all of that obviously came into the picture there. And that's what I did. I mean, I honestly just gave two mock tests every weekend, so about 8 mock tests. I was scoring I was scoring about 96, 97 percentile in the fifth or sixth mock test, and I was able to raise it up to 98, 99 in the final two mock tests. And after that, I just gave my cat. And um, uh, through that kind of understanding and that kind of preparation, I think that's where I did really well.
You didn't do really well, Paija. You did fabulous, actually. Right? It's a
Right.
humility, that you are saying you did really well. You did fabulous.
Right.
So,
Thank
where you went, it's a dream for,
you.
uh, I would say, more than 80% of the engineers,
Mm,
who come out
mm,
of their engineering college. Okay,
correct.
so I've got a question, coming up from Abhinash. He's asking,
Sure.
like, your life has been very challenging. Can you please tell us how did you manage between your job and preparation for CAT?
Sure. So, see, the thing is that there is a certain amount of time that you need to allocate for everything. So, your day needs to be extremely structured if you're preparing for CAT. If you're working a job, I mean, obviously, there'll be a lot of you who are studying, who will still be in colleges. There'll be a lot of you who are working, and then there'll be a lot of you who are who may have taken a year or two and are preparing for CAT. So in all these three cases, the way you approach it is different. When you're in college, you're probably in your last 2 semesters, and you don't have a lot of workload in terms of your studies, right? And but it still happens. It's periodic. It things, I mean, work comes and goes, and your studies come and go on and off, because you're in your final year. So at that point of time, it is very important for you to focus on initially on things that are easy for you. Get that down right. I mean, you need to ensure that any question in the topics that you're working on shouldn't take you, 30 seconds, more than 30 seconds for you to work out, right? So ensure that first that you uh, ensure that you get your strong points first, then start working on your weak points, topics which are where you think that you're lagging a little bit, and to identify what your strong points and weak points are, it is very important to take mock tests. So honestly, I've not been a very big fan of taking time classes or whatever, because um, but again, that's my opinion, that if they help you, well, that's great for you. But for me, classes seemed like something where, some place where I was wasting time, because they were telling me stuff that I already knew. They were just telling me, drilling down on things which I had learned in my 10th, basic stuff, basic reasoning, basic verbal. So I spent a lot of time actually working on uh, improving my timing, right? So that is what you need to ensure that you do when you're preparing for CAT. So you need to time yourself very effectively, and 30 seconds for a question that is easy for you, except of course for the comprehension questions. But a comprehension question, if it has four questions, it shouldn't take you longer than 2 minutes to do it, right? So that's where you need to time yourself, first of all. Second thing, because you're in college, you have a lot more time to practice, you have a lot more time to give mock tests, you have a lot more time to actually work on things that you don't that you're not strong in, right? So that is how your preparation goes when you're in this one. So you probably would need about 6 months of rigorous work to get your CAT scores up, right? So that's what you should do when you're in college. When you've dropped a year, or you think that you're going to prepare for CAT and you don't have anything else on your agenda, it's pretty much the same thing, but you have a lot more time. So it's again, practice, practice, practice. That's all it is. It's purely how quickly you can do things. I mean, it's how purely how fast you can do things. There's a lot of tools for that. There's Vedic maths, there's elimination, the ways that you can eliminate options, that actually has worked out great for me. So because any quantitative questions, there'll be a lot of quantitative questions where that these two options cannot be the answer, right? So you'll have to choose from, I think it was four options at that point of time, now it is five, but you will have to choose between at least three options. Options you'll be able to eliminate, and you just have to work out two. So it's easier to substitute if it's a equation or something where you have to find the value for x. It's easier for you to substitute it than to work out the entire quadratic equation or whatever you're working on. So um that those are things or tips and tricks that you have to work on, and that is most effective when you're actually dedicating about 6 months of your time. Again, the same thing for reasoning. Verbal, again, it is purely through reading, right? It's you have to dedicate time to reading. Pick up some books that you're interested in, pick up some books that are in your genre, pick up things where you think that this is definitely something that I want to read or have been wanting to read. It could be a Harry Potter series, it could be Lord of the Rings, it could be Game of Thrones for that matter. Pick it up and start reading, because that's how you get there. And I've never been a big fan of memorizing words or improving. Just reading through word lists and finding out what is the just and memorizing what their meanings are, because you don't get the context of the word. What you need to do is, again, read through these. Wherever you have a problem, wherever you don't understand a word, look it up immediately. Because if you write down words and if you think that I'll look it up later, what actually happens is you forget the context of the word. you start forgetting things where it was used, and places where it should have been used, places where a different word was used instead of that. So all of those things. So immediately look up what you're what you're reading. And again, newspapers are an amazing source. Pick up a paper like the Hindu or Economic Times. They have some really good authors, and that's where I got a lot of my preparation done. So for people who are working and preparing, it's, let me be honest, it's the hardest for you, right? It's something which is extremely demanding, both from your vocation as well as your preparation for CAT. And the thing that you need to focus on is primarily sticking the landing on topics that are easy for you. So you have to make sure that you have to learn when to let go of a question. You have to learn कि हाँ ये सवाल में से 30 seconds में नहीं हो रहा है, so let's just move on to the next one, right? I don't know, it may happen that the CAT the structure of the way CAT it takes place, the exam takes place, changes. But again, at my time, I was able to go back and review a question. So if they make it a GMAT kind of thing, where your questions are you'll not be able to go back and review your questions, then the strategy will be a little different, where you have to understand that if it becomes pro the way the way GMAT is being done, then if you answer a question wrongly, the next question will be easier. So you have to ensure that you don't take too much time fussing over the answer. Don't take 10-15 minutes on a question, because you have, at max, you have about a minute per question, and you need time to go back and see if there's there's an option where you can review your questions. You need time to go back and review, because there are some, the negative marking really hurts. It really hurts in topics where topics where you think that you can do well. So um, you need much better time management. You need to let go of questions where you think that you're spending too much time, and you need to work purely on your strengths, right? Your weaknesses will come, working on your weaknesses will come a little later. But yes, that is only if you have time remaining. Finally, the last advice would be that if you're working on if you're um, taking going to any coaching classes or whatever, stick to their mock tests. So nowadays I've seen modern mock test formats, and they give you a lot more information than I used to get. I used to struggle to actually understand where I was losing marks, or where I was going wrong. So now it is a question by question, choice by choice replay that they could give you in a lot of cases. So understand where you're going wrong, especially in your strengths, and work on that. So that's the basic advice that I can give you within the short amount of time that I have.
Yeah, that's that was a great advice, guys. So I will create a separate clip for this, and we'll make sure that every cat aspirant goes to that.
Right.
Because अगर ये मुझे थोड़ा सा पहले मिला होता तो थोड़ा सा ज्यादा परसेंटाइल मेरा भी आता.
Right.
This is really great. अच्छा, Parijat, so I've got a question in my mind. Like, people
Sure.
call institutes as, the best institutes in India or in the world. MDI is one of the prestigious ones. Then you have got IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta in the same league.
Mhm.
Why do they call them best? Like, is it because of the competitive exam that students go through to crack those colleges, or is it because of something else?
So, see, there are multiple things that actually go into it. The competitive exam, again, it is a factor there, because it ensures that the people who are getting in are of a certain pedigree, who have really worked hard for their competitive exams. And again, so this is more of a result rather than a causality. So the cause is not that the competitive exam is tough, so that's why the colleges are good. It's actually the other way around. The colleges are good, and that's why the competitive exams are that hard. Having said that, there are several different ways where you can label a college as a better college. First of all is basically the kind of faculty that teaches you there. So you need to ensure that before getting into any college, just research the kind of people who are there. So before I went to MDI, before I actually chose MDI, I actually read about a lot of colleges, a lot of the faculty that was there. I wanted to do marketing, so there was Professor Shrimali who was heading it at that point of time, and I read his review. I had read his biography, and that is something that really impressed me. So ensure that the faculty that you get in your college before going in is you've been able to study that. Second, of course, is the brand of the college. How big of a this one is it? How old is it? Has it been around for a while? Has it been um, has it does it have a name in the industry, basically? So the brand, of course, is very important. Third, of course, are the placements. I mean, that is undeniably one of the biggest things that you would see in terms of package, in terms of the companies that come there, in terms of the diversity of companies that come there. It's if it's purely FMCG, if एक company अगर एक college में सिर्फ FMCG आ रहा है, yes, the companies are good, but you're restricted to FMCG. Why have that restriction? So look at the diversity of companies as well. And of course, I think it's to a smaller degree, but it does play a part. Is the batch strength that they're looking at? So if at the time that I got into MDI, I think the batch strength was about 120 people. We were divided into four sections, so it was 40 people each. Following years, I think they increased the batch strength to 240. But the thing is that of course, if you have a smaller batch strength, it remains that much more exclusive, first of all. Second, it remains that much more individual attention that you get. So you can imagine four sections of 30 students each, and you can imagine four sections of 60 students each. There's definitely going to be a difference there. So that is something that these are, I think, four major factors that define how good an institution is, and where it should be on your priority list. Of course, the competition parts comes later. Based on all these four things, it is primarily how hard it is to get into an institution.
Yeah. And Parijat, your first company after
Mhm.
an MBA actually
Mhm.
reminds me of your interest about mechatronics and
Right.
the aerospace and all. So was it luck? Was it your power of subconscious mind working, or intentionally only applied for those companies who were
I
in that
so
bubble?
I actually had offers from other companies. I was I mean, so this was day negative, right? So your day zero starts at a certain point of time. That's where your companies can come in. But there are certain companies which get, because they are they're really great companies. They get to come a little earlier. So I had an option to choose from three companies, and honestly, that is thanks again to MDI that I was able to do that. I would not be able to name any of the companies, but I had got calls from all three companies saying that hey, if you want to join, we're sending you an offer letter through your Placecom, and you can just accept. So the thing was that. For me, aerospace at that point was something that I wanted to do. The pay was actually half of what I was getting from the other offers, right? So it was honestly, it was a little lesser than 50% of what I was getting elsewhere. But for me, aerospace was important, and aerospace is still important for me today. I still follow it. I still there are a lot of people that I've guided. There are a lot of companies that I consult for in terms of aerospace. Um, so that has been my passion, and that is something which where there was a first time that a company from the aerospace domain was coming to MDI, which is what I said, right? The diversity of companies that actually come in. So this was the first time for me. So yes, it was definitely partly luck, but definitely partly my passion, my this one, to get into aerospace at that point of time.
right? And then, from this company, you went to another company which was again into aerospace. So how was your experience at aerospace? Or tell us, because we don't know anything about this sector as such. Means we have got very limited knowledge. So what all happens here, and what was
Sure.
your work all about?
Right. So I started off with being a management trainee at Tata. When I joined. So, and the thing that I worked there was so the first stint that I got was into SCM, right, into supply chain. And the thing that struck me was, you've taken me for a business development profile and you're sticking me into SCM, right? So that was my first instinct. But then I was like, nahi, theek hai. Let's just start working and at least understand what the industry is about. And this SCM bit actually gave me a lot of insights into what happens in the background, right? If I was a business development guy, I would be probably the guy who, in the forefront, uh, you know speaking to companies, speaking to the customers and all of that. But the SCM bit actually gave me a lot of understanding of what happened in the background, what actually happened in the factories, what happened in the manufacturing domain, what was it to be a customer. So that was my one of the biggest learnings that I had, is to be what it is to be on the customer's end of things, right? Because I had always seen, even during my college, I my major was in marketing. And so I was always at the other end of the table, where I would be the one selling, right? So the SCM part, or the SCM bit, that I got for the first 3 months, or sorry, first 4 months, told me how was it to be in the customer's chair, and what a customer thinks when you're working, or when you're selling to him. So him or her, sorry. So that's what my learning phase was. And then I moved to so then I was moved, because I did well there. I was moved to the central sourcing, or it was called the strategic sourcing team, which would take care of. So you have to understand the Tata, this one, right? So at that point of time, they were working three factories over there, in partnership with some of the biggest names in the aerospace industry. And so at that point of time, I was when the initial bit was only for one factory. When I moved up, I was taking care of the sourcing for the entire, for all three factories, and which was basically ensuring that the contracts that got done, or the buying process for each of the factories was streamlined. So that's where my work came in the beginning. And then I was after my rotation as a management trainee, I was moved to the business development function. And that's where I started speaking to some of the biggest organizations in the world, in terms of aerospace, right? So um, telling you a little bit about what the industry is like. See, there are so aerospace as such has a lot of fields in it. So it has the mechanical parts, which is the body of the aircraft. You have the cockpit, you have the fuselage, you have the empennage, the wings and all of that, which you are able to see. And then you have the electrical systems that go into the cockpit, that goes into the wiring of the aircraft, that goes into the entire making the entire aircraft connected. Then you had the safety function, which ensures basically that the people, or if it is a passenger aircraft, the people are more safe or more secure. There are alarms in place, triggers in place, sensors in place to make sure that anything that is out of the ordinary can be can be passed on to the pilot. And then of course you had the software bit. So that those are the four main components in aerospace. I was working in the structures part, or the mechanical part, which basically involves assemblies, which involves large parts, which involves the landing gear, for that matter, which involves the ailerons, the flaperons, the different parts of an aircraft which actually move. So those are the things that I was working on. And I was into the aerostructure side. And the way that this all works is this is a multi-tier model. The biggest organizations in the world are they are called they have something called the FALs, or the final assembly lines. That is where the aircrafts are put together, but the aircrafts are not put together by part. You have major assemblies or major modules that are built elsewhere, and then bought over there to for it to be finally assembled. So there's a tier one which actually makes the major assemblies or the major modules. Tata at that point of time was a tier one, a company which was making very very large, assemblies which would go directly into an aircraft. And then you have the tier two people who are making, smaller parts, which are making the parts which go into an assembly or which go into a module. And then you have tier three people who are making, the smaller things, the bolts, the bushes, and all of those things. And finally you have the tier five people who are basically doing the special processes, the chemical process, and all of that. So that's how the industry is layered. This is across the world. This is something which is not just in India. It has started off again from the lower rung in India, where you were able to first spot, tier twos and tier threes, tier fives coming in, then tier ones, and then Mahindra, of course, is a company that has a final assembly line, so they're doing that. um, so I mean, having said all of these things, this is how it is. The industry is layered, and especially on the structure side, and that's basically where I worked. So the thing about aerospace that you have to understand is that it's about being on quality and on time, right? So there are entire contracts which are structured around the tolerances that you're able to achieve, or the tolerances that are required on a specific part or a specific assembly. And then the time that you need to be delivered, both are extremely stringent, both are extremely hard to meet, both of them require very rigorous project management, very rigorous program management, and a very strong senior team. So you need, it's right now we are seeing that major companies are getting into this. You have the Tatas, you have the Mahindras, and you have Reliance as of late. They've got into that. So you have major companies getting into it because the investment is just massive, not just in terms of the machinery, the hangars that you need to get, but the people you need to get are extremely, top rung as well. So in our case, we actually had a lot of expatriates. We had a lot of people from the US, and we had a lot of people from Greece which were stationed in Tassel. So another uh, you know that's another big thing that we saw over there, that the diversity, where that was the first time I actually met someone from the Greek side. I had met someone from the US earlier, but that was the first time I met someone from Greece, and to understand their culture and their thought process is completely different. So again, it was a huge learning platform for me. My time in aerospace.
Right. That was quite an elaborate Parijaat. I think all these things can be clipped, and it gives such a detailed view of the sector in which you worked. And most importantly, guys, see the clarity of thought, right? And this is what whenever I am talking to Parijaat, this impresses me so much. Parijaat has such a clarity of thought, and he believes in a lot of introspection as well, right? Where, the way he's actually doing the things, this really helps, guys. Acha, so a lot of things about the
Mhm.
aerospace. Now, what made you switch to SaaS?
Okay, so this was a very difficult decision for me. The thing was that, where the thing was that basically when I started looking at aerospace, it was a repetitive thing for me. It was something that, which I went into a lot of detail, right? So it was a lot of learning over a very small period of, I mean, so small period of time. You can argue how long it is, but yeah, over the 5 years it was extremely concentrated learning, right? And what that meant was that at the end of the day, I was not doing something new. I was not doing anything new. I was just working on the same things over and over. I had spoken to the leadership of the largest aerospace organizations in the world. I was in touch with a lot of them. I had been to conferences with them. I had shared lunch, dinner with them. So all of that, and honestly, at a point of time, it got to a point where I was. I would be able to spend just 2 hours or 3 hours in a day where I'd be able to finish all my conversations, finish all my work. And then I used to just walk around the shop floor and speak to people or blue collared people who were working, right? So um, they were just working on machines. I would just go up to them, asking them, what are you doing? How can this be improved? Or how is it that just talking to them personally, how is this going to hit? If I think I remember that there was a very short period of recession, and there were some people who were on the verge of being furloughed from the company. So I went, spoke to them, understood what they were what they were good at. um I supported their retraining and stuff that could be done and they could be kept within the company, right? So I used to do a lot of those things. So at towards the end of my period in aerospace, I was doing more of less of learning and more of teaching, mentoring. So at a point where you stop learning, that's a point where I think that it's high time you move on, because that makes you complacent, that makes you again in a very you're in your comfort zone and you're happy. हाँ ठीक है, मतलब कि I'm getting steady increases in my salary, I'm getting steady this one, but you're not learning, you're not doing anything, you're just it becomes a 9 to 5 job for you, right? So that's where I thought that nahi yaar, there's something that I needed to learn, because the basic concept of your marketing or your sales or selling, because it remains the same. It's not going to change. It's just the product that changes. The same, the what do you say, the basics or the fundamentals remains the same. So that's where I decided, yeah, take it up as a challenge. I said, let's just start exploring and see what kind of other things are there. So SaaS was among the first things that I looked at. SaaS, and fortunately, I was inducted into a company that was doing SaaS with logistics. So that was a different problem in itself, a very different product, and a beast of its own accord. So that is something that that is the reason why I thought that it's just purely because the learning stopped. That's it, Rishikesh.
Yeah, that's great. Acha. And you know, so B2B sales, like
Right.
Parijaat, people who are into this or who are just going to get into B2B sales, what
Hmm.
will be your advices like, and what do you think are the kind of skills that they should have or they should start developing if they want to do good?
Right. Right. So there are two skills that you need for this one. This is according to, again, my opinion. Basic two skills that you need, right? So one is restlessness. I mean, it in a lot of people's mind, restlessness means it's a negative thing, right? It means that you're not stable, you're not, you're fidgeting, you're doing stuff. But please understand the meaning behind what I mean by restless. The thing is that it's that you're not sitting idle, right? You there are several relationships or several leads that are just waiting for you to pick them up, right? In a lot of cases, I've seen where I've contacted customers to be prospective customers, and they've told me, hey, this is exactly what I've been looking for the last 2 months. Where were you the last 2 months? So you never know when that's going to happen, right? That's going to be your point where you're like, oh, okay, great. So I mean, this is going to be this is going to be an easy and quick process, because they've been looking for that as well. So the first important thing is to be restless. Just keep don't sit idle. Don't sit in one place. I mean, not figuratively, of course. I'm sitting in one place for a while, but uh, don't sit in one place. Don't think that all your options have been exhausted. Never think that all your options have been exhausted. The same product can have a lot of other uses, right? So it's not that with a slight incremental thing you can push the same product to a different industry or for a different use altogether. So that is again on you to find out, okay, so this particular industry has a requirement for this, or this particular product can be used in a different way. You can always find ways or find customers who are ready to give you feedback, as to tell you, to pass on the information to your engineering team or your development team. um, and you need to get it done. So, and again, even when you pass it on to your team, your engineering team or your development team, your work doesn't end there. It You have to be restless. You need to, I mean, not bordering on this one that you're calling them 20 times a day. No, you need to give them space, of course, but there's a constant pressure that needs to be maintained, right? um, and this is both on the customer side as well as the internal side. So again, never sit idle. Never think that your work is finished. Never think that yaar ab maine 100% coverage kar liya hai. It's never going to be 100% coverage. Kabhi nahi hoga, because every day new companies are starting. Every day people are finding different ways to use your product. That is the first aspect. Second aspect is to build relationships. You need to know how to build relationships. It's a very big or and a very very impressive tool if you have that in your if you have that in your toolbox. It's going to be something that helps you out in a lot of bad situations. I remember several cases where I was answering to some of the biggest defense contractors in the world, some of the biggest companies in defense in the world, and there were products which needed to be shipped at a certain point of time. And the thing was that the product just wasn't ready. I mean, it was the parts that needed to be shipped just weren't ready. So, and the thing was that it was dragging for 1 week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, then it turned to months, and then so it basically was delayed by I think 6 months, because again, it's a learning phase in India. There's a lot of companies which are still in their nascency, and especially aerospace is in its nascency. There's a lot of restrictions, restrictions, and all of that, where you'll not be able to get better. We've not been able to source better machines. Um, but again, you have to work around that, right? So, it what may be easier for them in the US may not be very easy for you here. So what kept the contract in place even after a 6 month delay was my relationship to the person who I was speaking to, right? I actually made 2 trips to the US just to sit in front of this guy and say, hey, we are working on this, these are the problems that we are facing, and they would come back with solutions and all of that. But that they were able to understand that um, we are facing those problems because we have the know-how, we have the engineers, we have the skill to do it, but we don't have the machines to do it. We don't have those great machines which are actually used in the world today to be able to do things extremely quickly. And there are a lot of trade restrictions, there are a lot of things that are to be considered before saying that, hey, why don't you just import these machines? So because of that, it was kudos, of course, to the person in front of me as well, that he was listening. He was a person who didn't give up on us. So and it was something that my relationship with him, it was a it was a give and take thing, that me sitting there actually helped made our relationship a lot stronger. And because our relationship was stronger, I was able to go there a second time. Because of that, again, our relationship got a lot stronger. And because of that, I was able to uh, you know ensure that he understands the problem that we are facing. It's not because we are not ready to do it, it's not because we are lazy, it's not because we don't have the know-how, it's just that the machines are a lot less advanced here. So he understood that, and kudos to him. That I've met a lot of customers who don't listen to you, who are like, "Nahi, I need this tomorrow, or I'm removing contract." And that's when you need a face-to-face thing, which again, with the current pandemic, it's a tough thing to do. It's been a little tough, but it's still required, that face-to-face approach, or that physical presence where you're sitting in front of him. He's able to see that your body language is sincere, you're sincere, you're not hiding stuff behind you, or somewhere when you're speaking to him on phone, or on on video chat. So it's very important to develop that relationship, that level of trust, that he knows that you're doing your best, and that at times of crisis this guy is always going to come across. So two very important parts of B2B sales. I think everything else can be managed with these two things.
So two things, guys. First one is the relationship building, and the second one
Is restlessness.
is restlessness. Yes, exactly. So be restless. Try to do things and keep on doing the things. Uh, Parijat, like I think you're not tired because 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 because
Mhm.
I know you. You
Correct.
never get tired. So yeah. So like to ask you one small question before we end the
Sure.
session over here. Any particular advice if you'd like to give to the people like who have just entered into a career, who have just entered into a company,
Hmm.
and they have got a lot of doubts whether to go for MS, to
Sure.
go for MBA,
Sure.
to go for other fields, or whether to continue their continue their work as it is. So
Mhm.
how should they decide, like whether they should contact some mentors or they should do something of that?
So see, first of all, it is very important to set your agenda straight, right? I mean, what do you want from life? If it is, if you're a person who thinks that you want to teach, you want to pursue a PhD, go ahead and start working towards that. If you think that the higher education is the answer, go ahead and do that. I mean, so again, go ahead and prepare for it, work hard for it. If things don't pan out, if things don't happen, don't get uh, don't get sad or disappointed that things didn't happen. It's probably going to be meant another way. I mean, that is something that I've always believed in. Is that there are things that happen for everything that happens for a reason, and everything that happens, you must learn from that, right? So that being said, yes, it definitely helps to have someone on your side who is able to guide you, who's able to help you um, understand the kind of mistakes that they've made, the kind of experiences that they've had. So it's basically a shortcut for you. So it's like, if I still remember a lot of seniors that I had, be it in any form of things. So I mean, be it as basic as gaming, right? I game a lot, so I play a lot of Counter Strike and Dota and all of that. So uh, basic stuff like your seniors telling you, and this is inconsequential. I'm not going to be a professional Counter Strike player or whatever, but this is it just tells you that even with the smallest stuff, there's always going to be someone who can help you out, right? So I used to have seniors who used to tell me that isko is tarike se mat kar, isko is tarike se kar, right? So this is a shortcut for you to be from point A to point B. And there's a lot of improvements that I was able to see in my game. There was a lot of things that I either I would have found the hard how found out the hard way, or worked really hard on it. I would have probably spent years on something which I understood from bhaiya in about 2 seconds. right? So it is very important to have a mentor. It is very important to have someone who's able to help or guide you in certain paths, or avoid the mistakes that they've done. um Having said all of that, it's again great to have several different mentors as well. With you can have a person who's your spiritual mentor, you can have a person who's your professional mentor, you can have, of course, in my case it was a gaming mentor. But it's very important for you to respect such people. It's very important for you to first of all seek out such people, and you will find people here. So I another example that I was giving was the Excel thing. When I started learning Microsoft Excel, I was at a very basic stage. And finding mentors doesn't mean to be someone who's sitting in front of you and telling you stuff, right? It could be a sporadic thing. It could be someone who you talk to maybe once in 2 3 months, understand that you're still in the right path, and align whatever kind of work that you're doing, right? So the Excel thing, for example, as I said, there were certain people, although most of the people that I took advice from were anonymous, but there were certain people that I met on online forums, on online Excel forums, who I used to ping them, like, or mail them or whatever, every once in 2 3 months, whenever I came up with a problem which I myself wasn't able to solve, or I would have been able to solve, but I would have spent maybe a year, just working on that. So mentors, again, very important. Direction in your life, very important. Third thing, please keep things planned, guys. I mean, whatever you do, ensure that you have a plan. You have a long term plan, you have a mid-term plan, you have a short term plan. Start with your long term, because that is at the end of the day where you want to be in your life, right? Then work backwards to your midterm. Ha, theek hai, to achieve my long term, this is what I have to achieve in the midterm. That would mean that these are certain degrees, or these are certain positions, or these are certain companies that I want to work in. And then finally the short term, to meet your midterm goal, mid period or midterm goals. What are you going to do immediately to make those changes? So if it is a midterm goal to actually have a good body, start working out today. Set up a timetable to ensure that you are working out, effectively, to be able to reach your goal. So if and define everything. Say that on a piece of paper, write it. If you have a diary, write it, saying that 50 years sorry when I'm 50 years old, this is where I want to be. This is the amount of savings that I need in my bank to lead a happy life. This is the position that I think I want to be. This is the place where I want to be staying, right? The place, again, it could be extremely vague. It could be as vague as I want to stay on a beach, right? Or I want to stay in the hills, right? So it could be that. Midterm, because of these things that you want to do, work out the expenses that you need at that point of time, and work out your investment plans, your savings, all have to be aligned to what your long term goals are. And then, of course, the short term goals are things that immediate changes that you need to bring in when to reach your midterm goals. So I think these three advices are basically what I'd give to folks today.
And that has cleared all their doubts, Paijar. Like, this has been a great session.
Mhm.
Like, like I'm really proud of doing this. Actually, Paijar, really 1 hour. It has been more productive than, means, I would say, 2 3 months of talking to some guy. But really, thanks a lot, Paijat, for enlightening us with all those things. And not only enlightening us, but it's more about, you are very free talking about
Right.
this, and this is what we need
Correct.
right now. We need people like you, we need mentors, we need industry leaders like you, who actually talk freely. You
Mhm.
talked about your failures, you
Mhm.
talked about your success,
Correct.
you talked about everything.
Mhm.
And this is what is being visible inside the comments. All of them are telling that this has cleared a lot of doubts for them, a lot of life doubts that
Right.
has been cleared. So
Mhm.
guys, you can always follow Parijat on LinkedIn. I will put up the link to his LinkedIn profile in the description. You can always ping him, but don't disturb him too much. Let give him some time to respond. Yeah,
So Rishi, the thing is that, see, I mean, they can ping me anytime. It's going to be there in my inbox. I will get to it. If I'm, it is not going to be that I don't get to you in about 3 to 4 days. I would definitely get back to you within that time frame. But yeah, give me a little time to respond. Give, if you have certain very specific doubts, then give me a little time to research before I can respond to you. Because giving you a partial or giving you a half informed response is not going to make your life easier, right? So that's another thing. Finally, again, thanks Rishikesh. I mean, it's been great. I mean, that's another thing that we learn, right? I mean, that's a big part of relationship building, is that the more people that you speak to, there are a lot of things that become clearer in your own life. But there are a lot of shortcuts and a lot of life hacks, as a lot of people would call it, that you would be able to get. So talk
that's
to
so
as
true.
many people, talk to everyone. Just speak.
Yes, talk to everyone, go out and reach them. Don't be, hesitant in reaching out to people.
Correct.
Most of you do that, right? So you should
But
not do
wear a
that.
mask. Wear a mask when you're going out right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks a lot,
Right.
Paijat. We'll be in touch, and we will, surely would like that you take out some more time and have an interaction again.
Definitely.
Maybe
Anytime.
some other topic.
Definitely. Anytime. Anytime. All right. Thanks,
Thank you,
Rishikesh.
guys. Yeah. Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you.